Jim, how you doing today?
What's going on, guys? Hey, Anthony, didn't I talk to you this morning?
I think you did. I think you did.
Didn't I see you this morning?
Yeah.
No, yeah, no, great to be here, fellas. Like I said, like I was saying off the top on my show, which you can see later, we had like a different background last time we were together. We had like the Sphere. We were in Vegas. It was
Oh yeah.
cool. This is a cool setup too. But we were dressed to the nines a little bit last time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I was a little bit unprepared, so a little bit more prepared today.
no, yeah. I mean, Jim and I touched on it at the top of the show that we did this morning. But Jim, as you had probably heard Mark talking about as he came on, the big news was Auston Matthews becoming the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, taking the C away from John Tavares, who has been the captain of the team ever since he joined them at the beginning of the 2018-2019 season. So. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it actually makes any impact on how the Leafs do this year, or is it really just all kind of window dressing right now?
I think when you go voice is needed in the room, you can make two changes, right? Obviously, they made the head coaching change with Craig Berube, but the next change is the captain. And I think, look, John Tavares did a good job in Toronto, right? He's the reason why they got past the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs in 2023 for the first time since 2004. But his answers, being in front of the camera, it's kind of getting, I don't want to say stale, but I think people understand you're just going to get a certain answer from him. And I think he understands that this is Auston Matthews' team now, right? Matthews is a
Yeah.
face of the franchise. Everybody looks to Auston Matthews. He's really out there in public doing things for the Maple Leafs. So even Tavares understood it. And, watching the press conference today, it seemed like Tavares was on board with this. When Trey Living approached him about it, he's like, yeah, I fully endorse it. I think Auston should be the captain. And look, ever since he's come into the league, Auston Matthews has been a beast for his team, right? Scoring, 4 goals in his first game. He had 69 goals last year. Look, he's always in front of the camera. Everybody's buying Matthews jerseys. He's the reason guys go to the All-Star game. Kids love him. American-born player, which is, a first for that franchise. Only second Canadian to be the captain of the Maple Leafs. So that's a huge honor for him. Plus the extension last year, I think it makes sense that, Auston Matthews is the captain of this team. And maybe another voice is needed. And maybe we can finally see, I'm not going to say we're going to see a lot of emotion from this team, but I think, when we saw from Morgan Riley, a little bit at the end where they're like, we're not right there anymore, right? He's like, yeah, we're not right there. I think Auston understands that it's time to show a little bit more emotion. It's time to step up and not give the same old answers with this team.
Jim, I can't help but wonder, and we're going to ask this question in our Bar Talk segment, though. There are those players that, like in baseball, they're the eighth inning guy. They're great. They become the closer. They're horrible. New York Met fans would remember Braden Looper as one of those examples. Going with this, you can look even locally. Brian Leetch took over for Mark Messier, not that great of a captain. Is the C, do you think it would weigh on Auston Matthews?
I don't think so. He's been in the spotlight up there since day one. I mean, he's had an A on his sweater since 2019. And, he's been in front of the camera a lot. I got to talk to him last year down in New Jersey. I saw him again in Vegas. Anthony and I saw him as well. He handles the media so well. And I think, a lot of people look to him to see what he can do. And you see, like, come playoff time, does Matthews step up? Who's the guy that they're looking to? And that's a perfect example. I'm going to use one myself. When Scott Niedermayer left to go to Anaheim, the transition from Stevens, Niedermayer, they put it on Patrick Elias. Elias didn't feel like he's a good on-ice leader. Like, he can lead by example. But speaking up, he's not that kind of guy. And he was like, no, I can't be captain anymore. And then they moved it on. Jamie Langenbrunner took over. So there's some guys that can handle it. Matthews is one of those guys that can handle the C. I think, he's been doing it. Even without a letter, he's been doing it for a while. When he first got there with the A on, it feels like he's already had a voice in that room.
Specifically when it comes to Tavares, some people reading into the future what this means for him, as his contract's expiring. at the end of the season. I can go either way with Tavares and his future in Toronto. I think there's a chance that the Maple Leafs certainly extend him at a far less below his AAV that he's currently making. But then there's also a chance that maybe he moves on. But I don't think him giving up the C though one way or the other spells what his future is. Because again, I think this was coming. It was the writing on the wall. He's older. Matthews is young. He's the face of the franchise. So do you think Tavares not having the C anymore might mean he could leave next July?
It could. I think he could leave. But again, he talked about it even today. I mean, he used to look, I want to keep contract negotiations behind closed doors, but he referenced that he wants to be a Maple Leaf for life. He wants to be there. So I think he even recognized the writing was on the wall that this is Matthews' team. And whether if he comes back on a, 3-year deal at $3 million, $4 million, reasonable deal, reasonable contract, he knows this is Auston's team now. But he could leave. Maybe the Maple Leafs decide, hey, you know what? Your production isn't there anymore. As much as you want to be a Maple Leaf for life, I don't know if we can really do this. I mean, maybe we'll go year to year with you, but sometimes you have to cut bait and see how things work out and play out in the final year of the deal. I mean, I think it might be easier to walk away from John Tavares than it is Mitch Marner for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But to me, I think, again, this is just a smooth transition. You don't embarrass the guy. You get him in, collaborate, and the fact that they had everybody there together, both families, all the staff, the management, it just was a good day. And they didn't do it in the arena. I think they did it in real sports today. So that's even better. It's just a different side of this team that we haven't seen. Usually it's just so robotic.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Jim, let's go to your beat for a minute because last month we rated the top GM from the Metropolitan Division. No surprise, it's your New Jersey Devils, Tom Fitzgerald. How do you think his improvements are going to look, and are they going to translate just as well? Because on paper, you can't help but look and say this team is going to make the playoffs. But is it going to work with the new coach, Sheldon Keefe? Do they have a little bit of moving parts? How much does health play into this?
Oh, health plays 100% into this. I mean, look last year. I mean, if Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier don't miss as much time as they do, especially Hughes, and they don't lose Dougie Hamilton, and if they get the goaltending, the Devils are a playoff team last year. And if they actually addressed the goaltending last year, they probably would have been in the Eastern Conference Final. Now, okay, you missed the playoffs, probably a blessing in disguise. Now you address the needs. Defensively, you get better, stronger. You acquire one of the best, sign one of the best defensive defensemen in the game, and you keep him within the division of Brett Pesce, right? You bring in Brandon Dillon. You add Stefan Nason, a familiar face. Tomas Tatar is there as well. You bring in Paul Carter. You get bigger, meaner, nasty. You get your number one goaltender, Jacob Markstrom, the guy you've targeted, guy I've been on, since January. I've been following that story forever. And, now you pair him with Jake Allen. Now Markstrom doesn't have to play as much, right? Allen, we know, can shoulder 25 games at least. He can play well. Better defensively. New coach. Now, let's see. Look, Sheldon Keefe comes in there. Let's see how quickly the new coach, how quickly they can adapt to the new system. Sometimes it takes a little bit. Sometimes teams click right away. We don't know. We're going to find out. But you have a motivated coach. You have a motivated group of players. If this team stays healthy, there's no reason they can't get back to the playoffs this year and be a top 3 in that division. Tell me who's better than them outside of Carolina and the Rangers. Realistically, they should be a top 3 team in that division.
Oh, just one follow-up.
Jim,
what's your thoughts on Sheldon Keefe? Sorry, Anthony.
No, great coach. It's a great hire. I've loved Sheldon up in Toronto. Look, he's been in the spotlight up there for, I believe, 8 years, with the Marlies and with the Maple Leafs. The big thing is he's going to hold players accountable, and he's going to bring a defensive system in there, but he's going to let the players play offensively too. And what really impressed me, and, this is the thing that I was scratching my head a lot watching the Toronto Maple Leafs this year in the playoffs, because they played so well defensively in games 5 through 7 against Boston. If they could have just put that performance together in games 1 through 4, especially on home ice in 3 and 4, where they were flat out embarrassed, they would have been in the playoffs. Not to say Sheldon might not have been, fired if they had lost in round 2, but he can get a team to play defensively and he can adapt and he allows players to play, right? And he turned Auston Matthews and Mitch Marner into Selke Trophy finalists. I mean, look, opinions vary on the guy, right? But when you take Mitch Marner and Auston Matthews, two of the premier goal scorers and playmakers in the game, and turn them into two-way players, just imagine what you can do with Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. And Nico Hischier is supposed to be a guy that should be a Selke Trophy finalist. Everybody's saying that's a guy that could be a Selke Trophy finalist and a winner. So I like Sheldon Keefe. I've always thought look, it's Toronto. It's the spotlight. Maybe he flies under the radar here a little bit.
Your ideas are intriguing to me, and I wish to subscribe to your newsletter.